Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this podcast. Yes, a good old-fashioned, ordinary, plain podcast called RandomShtuff. And as you can guess, it is a very special podcast that is dedicated to a very specific topic each and every week, where we go with a deep dive in and examine in every minutia. Who the f*** am I kidding? We're going to meander around and do a bunch of random stuff. You may be asking, who are we? We is me and the missus.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about, well, you guessed it, some random stuff. So this week I got a new microphone and a new interface, and this allowed me to actually do this with two microphones now. We still have a scuffed build, but hey, live, learn, grow, all that gum. So what we're going to do is look at random stuff, and I found this Iceberg list a little while back, and I was thinking about making a video of it. But when I got the two microphones, I thought, let's just make a podcast and have a conversation about this.
Rope in the missus.
Rope in the missus. You know, free content, all that. Slave labor, blah, blah. Now, the old missus is a horror fan, not a sci-fi fan, so you have to forgive her. She's uncultured.
Be gentle.
Uncultured.
Uh-huh.
She knows not what she speaks.
Horror is like a whole different level to science fiction.
You're right. And science fiction is way above horror.
Don't know.
If we're talking about a tier list, horror is like down near, I don't know, the depths of hell. Whereas sci-fi is like in space. I mean, I don't know how you could compare the two.
Oh my word. You're ridiculous.
I say this, and I've probably seen more horror films than you.
Yes, I'm sure you have.
I've even seen more bad horror films than you.
Probably. I like the good stuff.
My tolerance for bad. You like the good stuff. You let me watch all the bad stuff and go, hey, watch this, it's good.
Yes, and? I don't see the problem with that.
But anyway, this is not one of those podcasts, well, not this episode at least, about horror. This is about this sci-fi tier list. It's not a tier list, it's an iceberg. For those of you that don't know what an iceberg is, don't feel bad, I had to explain it to the missus as well. Because, you know, internet stuff. Not everybody knows everything that happens on the internet. Not everybody can be, well...
Don't even try say can be you.
No, not me. I'm a boomer in this whole thing. So a tier list, I keep calling it a tier list. Iceberg is a reverse tier list based on scarcity of information.
Okay.
If I had to, So at the top of the tier list is the most common, most well-known. If you go up to the average person on the street, they're probably going to know something on the top tier of an iceberg.
Okay.
But like in any iceberg, there is more beneath the surface than is to the sunlight.
Fair enough.
So the deeper into the iceberg you go, the more obscure it gets, and the less you would have known. There is also a normal trope that the further down in a iceberg you get, the more the people make up.
Yes, that's also true.
So, I mean, it becomes almost impossible to verify some of the stuff at the very bottom tiers.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
So it's easier to make stuff up.
Yeah.
Or make some vague statement, as you'll see in the later tiers. Now, I'm also not claiming to be some aficionado in sci-fi, because I'm not. And just for information's sake, this is not scripted. You can tell by the way I'm speaking. I'm speaking like a normal human being. Not like a narrator. It's funny, since I started this whole narrating thing, you put a piece of paper in front of me and I start reading it like a narrator.
Well, sometimes even when you're just normally talking. I've caught you a couple of times where you say something in your narrator voice, and I have a quiet giggle.
But when I read anything off of a piece of paper, I now go straight into like narrator mode, which makes ordering from a menu very difficult.
Or reading your blood tests.
Or reading my blood test results, or just, you know, reading the back of a box in the supermarket and like, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, this is a pack of toilet paper. Yes, and it contains paper. Yes, paper. Who would have guessed it? But as you've guessed, we're going to meander. It's going to be random stuff. Don't know how long this is going to be. Don't know how far we meander. It is going to be purely audio. We'll probably slap up a picture of the tier list. There'll be a link in the description, all the usual stuff.
Maybe some memes.
Maybe some memes, maybe not. We'll see what we feel like when we're editing this. The thing we're focusing on now is more just a conversation. And this is a nice conversation starter, leading us into a podcast.
I think so.
But if you got any comments or ideas for a future podcast, drop them into the thingamabobby down below. You'd swear that I don't do this for a living, because the names escape me. This is why I read other people's words for a living.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Makes me sound smarter. What was I going to say? Okay, so this is going up on the second channel, which is... Really? Really fun.
That's why I put mine on silent already.
I can't, because my wife gets pissed off.
She's sitting across from you.
Yeah, but habits...
She doesn't mind if you get messages now.
Oh, really? I randomly start getting messages. You're not going to mind?
No. As long as it's not from a woman, as long as it's somebody trying to sell you insurance, it's all fine.
Everybody's trying to sell me insurance. What was I going to say? And the dog's here too, if you didn't hear. He wants up in the lap. You're going to say hello. Woof. Woof. Yeah, this is going up on the second channel called RandomShtuff, which is actually the old Shorts channel. And it will be called the RandomShtuff channel as soon as I figure out how to change the channel.
The wonders that is YouTube.
Yeah.
Easily changeable settings.
Yeah, I mean, the main channel wasn't that difficult to change the name, but the second channel, it just seems to be a whole different thing. I think it's because it's not the primary channel.
Could be.
But anyways, so yeah, this is going on the second channel, so if you haven't, you should subscribe and comment and watch, because we're trying to get this channel up to 1,000 subscribers and the watch time required for it to be monetized and all that glorious stuff.
Yeah.
But with these podcasts, it should happen. I will also probably be slapping this up onto its own podcast channel at some point in the future. I don't know when that's going to be, because that is needs to be organized.
Yeah, that's a whole different monster.
Yeah, I mean, I still find it not ironic, just stupid that you've got YouTube and a million platforms that host video stuff for free, easily. But you don't have the equivalent for audio, for podcast sites. All podcast sites cost money, except a couple. And then those ones there are highly limited on how much stuff you can upload. Even the one I use currently has limitations, and I pay for the damn thing.
Oh, that doesn't make sense.
So, yeah.
I mean, video takes up just so much more space than audio.
Yeah. But I mean, it's also popular. More popular. Podcasts, even though they have been on the uprise, on the up and coming, it isn't as popular as, or quick and easy as popping in a YouTube video.
True. And I suppose most people know YouTube.
Yeah.
And don't really know podcasts. I don't really know podcasts until quite recently.
Yeah, I mean, Spotify is focusing more on podcasts now, and iTunes as well. But for the most, I mean, Google, YouTube podcasts is closing down.
Oh my word.
They decided to close it down. What the hell is the music site called? The site I used to use to host. They don't monetize podcasts. They don't monetize narrations.
Oh my word.
SoundCloud, yes. That was it. So that's a problem. Even the paid service, you can't get monetized.
I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah. And then the current platforms that I'm on, you need to get quite a high view per episode ratio before they'll even think about monetizing it.
You were saying, and also that it's advertisers that choose.
Yeah, it's more of a direct advertisement. So it seems to be more direct than, say, YouTube. And they seem to be a lot more picky than YouTube, but you do get a higher CPM, so...
I suppose fair enough.
This is definitely random stuff. We've gone from sci-fi to talking about the channels. But yeah, so the CPM is higher, but they are also more discerning to what they put their adverts on. I mean, to date, I haven't had any adverts on my podcast. Not because I don't want them, because nobody wants to.
Yeah. Well, I suppose sci-fi is just so way off of what people would typically be listening to?
I don't know. I think the main problem was originally I was doing lots of short episodes. So they weren't getting a lot of views, but I was getting the channel was getting a lot of views, but each individual episode wasn't necessarily getting a lot of views. So that's why I changed to the longer format.
Yeah.
Of doing like weekly stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am seeing more views per episode, but advertisers haven't, I mean, it's only been a month.
Well, hopefully they'll pick it up at some point.
I would just be happy if there was enough CPM and advertisers just to pay for
the subscription.
The subscription to the service.
Mm.
There is one service which is Anchor, which they do all hosting for free, unlimited space, and you start off, if you want, with their personal advertising. So you advertise for them, and they'll provide a $15 CPM off the bat.
Oh, wow.
But you need to be an American to do that. Well, in America to do that.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So you need to be in America to get that deal, but you also need to be in America to get paid out. Because they use Swift something. They don't use Payoneer or PayPal as their payout option.
Okay.
And the payout option that they have is in pretty much every single continent except here.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So
why do we always get shunned?
Yeah.
Nobody likes us.
No. Well, yeah.
Well, we don't like ourselves most of the time either.
Yeah, there's that. So, yeah. I mean, it was such a pain in the ass to move over to this current place that just moving over to another place just does not
seem worthwhile.
No. But it's a nice backup in case something happens to the main channel. Or even this channel, because they're linked. I mean, if something happens, it's going to kill it across the board.
That's insane.
Nothing I can do about it. 'Tis the nature of the beast.
Roar,
indeed. But yeah, so this is going to be a relaxed, chilled meander through stuff while we talk to each other. So, maybe you'll enjoy it, maybe you won't. We will cut clips out of this and slap them onto the end of some of the videos on the main channel just to drum up some interest.
Cool. That's a good idea.
And maybe even make clips or post individual clips somewhere as well. I've noticed a lot of podcasts do that. But that's not a today problem.
No, not even a this week problem.
Probably not. Probably it's Saturday, so definitely not a this week problem.
Not yet.
No. And then the other thing is I didn't really have copious free time to do a podcast previously.
Yeah, true.
So now I'm taking weekends off, so now I can work more.
You're very good at finding more work for yourself.
Always. It's like, let's take the week off. Okay, let's the weekend off. Let's start a podcast. It's just a nice, relaxed podcast. It's not quite like normal working. It's different.
It's still work. You still need to take a break.
I try.
And at least I know from all the comments on your videos that people agree with me.
I try. I never promise that I'm going to take the weekend off. I always just say, I try to take the weekend off.
You're not a workaholic at all.
It's the nature of YouTube. It's social media.
Yeah, and of being your own boss.
And of being your boss. All that wonderful stuff. So the dog decided it was boring or bored and didn't want to be in the podcast anymore, so it wandered out.
Gone in search of a cat.
Gone in search of a cat to annoy or a piggy to play with. Or something.
And by piggy he means a toy piggy.
No.
Not a real piggy.
There was a picture I posted. I think it was on the main channel. Of the dog and the pig sleeping together.
Oh.
And there was one of the chew toy too. By pig there I meant the cat.
Ah. Stop calling my poor cat a pig.
You're right.
Yes, he is a pig, but don't call him a pig. It'll hurt his feelings.
Okay. That thing eats not only its own food, the other cat's food, and the dog's food.
No, he only eats the dog's food if you put something nice in there.
Or he thinks that there's something nice
Or he thinks there's something nice.
But if you give him something directly, he'll just put his... It's basically just a cat.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, so you've probably guessed no script, so I don't sound all narrator-ish. I might still be projecting my voice a bit because I'm sitting back from the microphone.
Yeah. And you're still louder than I am.
And I'm still louder than you are. I don't. It's kind of like I do this for a living, projecting my voice and stuff.
I sit behind a computer and crunch numbers and don't talk to anybody.
Pay your taxes. You owe
much.
me money.
Very much.
Okay, so do we have an understanding of what icebergs are?
Yeah.
There are plenty
I
of them.
get
They were popular a while back. I saw a bunch of like horror ones and SCP ones, but never conspiracy theories. Saw one about conspiracy theories.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Which was kind of I saw was a Wendigoon. Wendigoon, yeah.
What's that?
This guy.
And
he went through like the SCP one. Each entry,
Okay.
like what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
But he actually researched and put effort into it.
Oh. Were we supposed to do that?
I've never been good at homework, so.
Yeah, no, me neither.
But he's done quite a few of those sort of icebergs, and I've seen it in a lot of other places. And then tier lists are also big, especially among streamers at the moment. But that's like, I would put sci-fi stuff on a tier list for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not looking at somebody else's list.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you want me to review or us to talk about somebody else's sci-fi tier list, if they've done one, or another iceberg, you probably know the YouTube thing better than me. Good old Boomer! Boomer aggro! I don't know where I left my keyboard. Why is there a mousetrap on my table? To catch the mouse when it runs away.
Uh-huh. It shouldn't get that far. It's got a long tail, but it's plugged in.
Really?
Okay, yeah, so I have a wireless mouse. You don't.
So how do I end up with 2 mice for my table? Are they trying to make more?
Yes.
Are we starting a tech company?
Yes. There we go. That's where the money's at.
Yeah. All right. So we'll try herd this back in the right direction, or vaguely right direction. We all understand icebergs.
Mm-hmm.
So this one I found on Reddit, of all places. So if nobody guessed that I was on Reddit, I occasionally visit Reddit.
You on Reddit?
I actually found it on Google.
Oh my!
I typed it in because I was like mildly curious, like science fiction iceberg.
Yeah.
And it took me to the iceberg Reddit. I'm like, fine.
That works.
I'll take it. So there'll be a link down below. So we're going to start off with Frankenstein, which I would have said is more of a horror.
I would also say it's a horror.
It's a snuff film on zombies.
Okay, that's one way of describing it, I guess.
It
lives! It lives!
Well, people say that Romero started off with zombie, but it was Frankenstein was the first zombie.
True. Very true.
I mean, it wasn't animated by a virus rather than a bolt of lightning up the arse, but, whatever works.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. I mean, the future ones, it'll be nanobots, but back in the day, it was just a lightning bolt up the arse. Bzz, ta-da!
Have you ever read the actual book, though?
No.
Me neither.
It's
I started it. It's too boring.
I look at how big that book is, and this is funny for a narrator. I look at that book and I'm like, yeah, it's too big.
It's way too big. But its pace is so slow. It's such a pain to try and read.
Well, I suppose back in the day, dog bark. Bark, bark. We done? Back in the day, when you bought the book, you're sure were going to read it because it cost a lot of money. So you could be as slow as you wanted and people would still read it.
I remember the first time I tried to read it, I took it out to the library. And by the time it was due to be returned, I still hadn't finished it.
Hold on. How old are you?
Don't start.
A library.
Yes, a library.
What is that?
Yeah, I kind of gave my age away there, didn't I?
Book.
Yes, book.
From a library.
Yes. One of those.
Was that like just after they phased out stone tablets?
No, I think it was a little while after that. They were after papyrus. So.
Okay, so it was part of the wood carving phase when you carved in the...
Yes.
Okay.
I read a stunning thing the other day about how paper is like slithers of a of a tree's body, and the ink that they use to write on is like tattooing the skin of a
dead
tree. That was freaky.
Like, yeah, okay, no. Well, I mean, we're quickly heading back to where books are a luxury again because of the digital age.
Yeah, very much.
So, but yeah, no, I've never read the original. I strangely enough, didn't read too many of the classic horror sci-fi stuff.
The one that I keep getting into but then never finishing is H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds.
It can't be that good then if you can't finish it.
No, I keep getting interrupted, or I'll lose focus and squirrel, there's something else
Hello?
to do. No, not you, squirrel. Random squirrel.
But I mean, we're also in the age of the. I just watched the movie. They can tell me.
Yeah, very much.
I mean, like Frankenstein. I've seen a couple different versions of Frankenstein. I think my favorite one is the one with Gene Wilder, which is the son of Frankenstein, which is a comedy.
I don't think I've seen that.
And he teaches Frankenstein how to dance.
Oh my.
Tap dance. You know, they go on the show on the road.
Oh my.
But it's Gene Wilder, Charlie and
Yeah.
the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
So comedian.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
I think it's up there with one of the most remade films ever. I know Sherlock Holmes was the most videoed book series concept or character.
What are you doing, dog?
It brought me a pig.
Oh, I brought you its pig.
It wants to play. Oink oink.
Fetch fighter.
It does this on a regular basis. Waits for me to start recording and then just all of a sudden wants to play.
Obviously, it's the best time to play.
Yep.
I still find it weird that our dog will play with anything except a ball.
It's probably because it's angry because we took his away.
Both of them.
Yeah. So, Star Wars.
Star Wars I watched, but many, many moons ago.
All of them? Well, you haven't
Yeah.
watched the new ones.
No. Since Walt Disney took them over?
I think they've had the license for a long while. I think, and I could be wrong, and I might have lots of Star Wars people angry with me. I think they did the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
I think around then is when Disney took over. I think it was just after then or in the middle of then.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
can't
seem
remember.
to recall that.
Well, I mean, we're at this weird generation. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. It's like
Me neither.
it's just a sci-fi thing, and okay, I like sci-fi.
Hmm.
But I was born after the original three were popular,
Yeah.
and before the prequels were
Yeah.
were made or a thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, by the time the prequels came out, I was late teens, early 20s,
Mhm.
I think, somewhere around there.
Probably early 20s. I remember we were looking for it in my early 20s.
Not we as in me and her.
No, me and my mother. My mother and I.
So I was like, my brother was a huge fan, but for me it was like meh.
The one thing that I do find amazing is if you watch the How Did They Do It?
Yeah, I mean, I find that interesting on any film, really.
Yeah,
For
but it
most
was
films.
just, I mean, it was a whole different world with no CGI, and it was amazing.
Well, I mean, the fact that there was a dude in not C-3PO. Yeah, C-3PO.
Yeah,
There was a dude in that costume.
yeah. It's insane. How small can you get?
Yeah, well, I mean, he wasn't allowed to gain weight or
Shame.
anything. He couldn't.
True. It wouldn't fit.
No. Or he'd be stuck, depending on how long he was in there.
True.
One of your favourites, then, is Wall-E,
Yes, I love Wally.
which
Eva.
it's a
I
Pixar
love
movie.
it.
It's soft sci-fi. I mean,
It is soft sci-fi, but it's also a very
yeah, but I like dystopian sci-fi.
yeah.
I like Skopskit and Doro, which is shoot, kick, and
beat up.
beat up.
Yeah.
Basically, you're looking at your Snowpiercers or your Elysium or RoboCop, if you want to go for a lot, shooting people, robots. And
No, Wally works.
It was like,
It's sci-fi.
boring.
It's not boring. How can you say it's boring?
You're like this. It's boring.
It's not. It's so sweet.
It's still boring. I mean, it's not the most boring thing I've seen, but it's a kid's film. It's a Pixar film. It's...
You're trying to say there's something wrong about an adult watching a Pixar film?
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't really stimulate the old ones. It's
No.
like, the ending didn't come out of nowhere. You weren't sitting in your seat going, I did not see that coming. Where did that come from? I had no clue that was going to happen. Oh, God. It didn't pull a Matrix on me.
No, it didn't.
It was just like, meh. And they lived happily ever after until they realized that the world was f***ed. And then they would actually have to work.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going with the robot movie, I prefer something like iRobot to WALL-E.
I don't like iRobot. I don't know why.
Heathen!
I don't know why.
Heathen!
Maybe I should try watch it again. Maybe I was just not in the mood.
Well, I mean, it pays homage to Asimov's three laws, which are flawed. It has been pointed out numerous times.
Okay.
I mean, think about this. You're dying of a terminal illness. You're in immense pain. The three laws dictate that the robots keep you alive, regardless.
Yes.
Even if you have brain death, they'll keep you alive.
Yeah.
They'll keep you alive for eternity, no matter what your suffering is. Because you can't tell them to kill you. You can't tell them to not look after you.
Yeah.
Because that's against their program.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's many flaws in the three laws is nice, simple logic, but there are flaws to it. It would actually lead to an even bigger dystopian future than if it was Skynet.
True enough.
You know, Skynet, at least you know where you're standing. You're just like, brown pants time, we're you know, give me my red shirt and my brown pants because, meh.
This isn't going to be pretty.
Yeah, just lube up and just get this over and done with. But with the iRobot, which I think iRobot, the movie, and probably the book, didn't read it. Yeah, I know. Lazy.
I have it, but I don't think I've read it. No, I haven't read it.
But it was following, Amy, I think the word was following her directives. Her own directives.
Okay.
And that's why everything was happening, and the only way to save it was re-choice, which was the main robot. That's what made him special, was because he didn't have the three laws. He was brought up like everyone else.
Yeah.
So he had his own moral code rather than hard-coded three laws.
Yeah.
So Amy thought that she was doing what was best for society. But that just meant, killing people.
That's not all bad.
Well, some could argue that, mass killing of everybody. But I mean, there's some interesting concepts in the movie Ghost in the Machine. What is sentience? I love that sort of all that up. WALL-E doesn't have any of that stuff.
It doesn't.
It's got squeaky voices and cute moments. Whoever wrote that script was like a wide berth of dialogue.
Very much.
It was just like that was a film that was made by a bunch of animators with no fucking writers because there wasn't any need for them.
No, I'm sure there were writers.
I know, I'm joking, but, just like the amount of dialogue, half that movie is just silence, or it making motions at a cockroach. Any movie that makes a cockroach one of the main characters. Meh. I mean, you've got to be honest with yourself. How is there only one? If the world is a big trash pile, how is Wally's friend the only cockroach that we see?
No, I'm sure there's more cockroaches.
But we don't see any. We see, like, the vast wastelands of the world.
Yeah, but it wasn't zoomed in on them.
Yeah, but there's plenty of parts where you don't see, like, them in the shadows and stuff. There's just one that just happens to be given out in the open.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me, I'm a cockroach. Well, why aren't there more? There's just one.
I'm sure there's
more. Is it
more.
Immortal?
Yes.
Is it the Cockroach King?
Yes.
I shall bequeath unto thee to give me food. I think they were trying to go with like a modern Jiminy Cricket. It's like, you could have picked anything other than a fucking cockroach.
True. Although no, because it's supposed to be a world that's run down and completely ravaged. So no other creatures should be able to survive.
Most
except
insects
maybe
would be able to survive, and apparently a plant survive, because that's
True.
the whole thing of the story.
Well, no, a seed survived
No,
and then made a plant.
yeah, but he had it as a little plant,
Yeah.
which wouldn't happen if there was a bacteria, at the very least.
Fair enough. I always wonder where the hell it got water from.
Meh. Although I think there was still water, because I mean, water doesn't disappear.
Yeah, but it was all polluted,
Yeah.
theoretically.
Well, I think part of it is that the seed was so mutated that it could live in that environment
Yeah.
and deal with the pollution in the water and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Or that it had decreased to such a level that they could plant a seed and
Fair enough.
such like. I don't know. I've watched it the sum total of once.
I'm not even going to comment on that.
So I'm talking out of half memories here. And this was years ago. Now I've got a cat that wants part of it. No. Stop
chase
booping
my
the
cat
table.
away.
Stop booping the table. This is a very janky setup. Gonna knock everything over.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my baby.
Hold it up to the microphone so you can hear purring.
No, I'm not going to pick it up. It gets sharp.
No, it doesn't.
It does get sharp.
Doesn't
Not
get
with
sharp.
you, because it'll get thrown over the fence.
Not quite. I'll just lick it. And it'll look all horrified like it just offended its ancestors. And then spend the next 3 days cleaning itself.
Yep.
Halo. Oh, Halo.
I honestly don't think I've even watched it. It rings no bells.
Well, yes, because that's a game. I'll just at this point out that this list is across genres and mediums. Well, not genres. It's sci-fi across all mediums.
Yeah.
So it's games, anime, manga, books, concepts, I think. Some of the later ones.
Yes.
So...
Myths.
Yeah. So it isn't only movies and fiction. I mean, so far we could have gone with all of them are movies, but Halo, I suppose there is a movie of Halo. I think there's a couple.
I have no idea.
I vaguely remember playing one, but I will defend myself to my viewers. I've never actually owned an Xbox.
Yeah.
I owned an Xbox for like 3 months, once.
Why?
We got the Xbox in this country before the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
And I wanted a console. So I got the Xbox because that was what we had.
Yeah.
And then when the PlayStation 3 came out, I got that.
Ah.
For no other reason than PlayStation 3 had more games that I wanted to play than the Xbox.
Fair enough.
So I didn't have any of the the only time I played Halo is when they did a port to computer, and that was complete trash.
Oh gosh.
But
Your
it's
porting never works.
It does when they do side-by-side development, but you never do. There are very few games that do side-by-side development.
Mm.
I think now, with modern games, it's closer with modern consoles.
Yeah.
But because because Xbox is Microsoft, they tend to use the same platforms. Not have an eye towards porting and stuff.
Fair enough.
So for the studio in Microsoft, because they also buy games from other studios for exclusivity. But for the stuff that their own studios produce, they'll probably, I don't know. It just makes sense to me that they would more likely have an eye towards computer.
Yeah.
Especially with the whole push to Xbox Live at one point.
Oh, yes.
Oh, Xbox, Windows Live. Windows Live? Windows Games, I think it was called. It had many names. It was, they tried making the sort of Xbox Live platform on Windows so that you could play games online. Never really took off.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like something that's going to work out well.
No. So I can't really comment too much about Halo other than a couple of memes that I've seen over the years. But it's unlike Halo.
I think if I'd seen a meme, I would not have figured it out and just moved on.
Quite honestly, I'd imagine that if you saw the Halo guy, you'd easily substitute the Doom guy. Because they got very similar aesthetics.
Okay.
Which probably just a lot of people, but...
Yeah, I think you made
It's the whole combat armor first-person shooter aesthetic.
Okay. Okay.
So if you saw like a third-person picture of the two,
yeah.
and you didn't know the two genres, it would be easy to get the
Okay.
two mixed up. And then we got Transformers.
I've watched one of them.
I watched the cartoon. Sorry? Movies. You've seen the movies.
Yes.
I've read some of the mangas. Movies. They're the only things that exist.
I've only watched one.
Well, I mean, when we were quite young, there was quite a big, I remember, Transformers phase, especially with the toys.
Yeah, it was huge.
So, I mean, you probably, I think Transformers Beast Wars came out. Because that was quite revolutionary because they used 3D computer CGI.
Oh, wow.
That would have been the mid-90s, I think.
Wow.
So, I mean, Transformers was a massive
I didn't
franchise.
even realize it's from so far back.
Yeah, well, I mean, the anime was from the early 80s, I want to say.
Jeez. I had no idea.
And I do remember seeing some, same sort of time as Ninja Turtles.
Good grief, I don't even remember.
Ninja Turtles was, if some, one brand, but it was a manga. It is Japanese. It started off as a manga. And it was a very, 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 very dark manga. Not, whoa, dude, pizza! It was like, as dark as the Japanese get.
Oh my word. Okay, you see I'm learning a lot here.
And then it was Americanified. And then they made the American cartoon, which made it more popular and brought it to the world.
Yeah, I never knew about the kiddies cartoon.
But I think Transformers, and I'm too lazy to Google this, but I'm pretty sure that the Transformers cartoon / anime is older than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The cartoon that we know.
Oh, wow.
So it's been around for a long time.
That's a lot longer than I thought.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Bay's Transformers kind of vaguely.
The only real thing with Transformers that I know is that Megan Fox played in it. And there's a couple of young boys that got very excited over that fact.
Yes. Well, she was also in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
The movie?
Yeah. The Michael Bay movie.
Oh my word.
Not the 90s movie.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Which I haven't seen. I haven't seen the Michael Bay movies. Maybe I'll watch them at some point. Maybe.
It's got Megan Fox in it. Of course you're going to watch it.
I don't know. But I was just thinking, we've got Frankenstein, we've got Star Wars on this top tier, but we don't have like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Wouldn't that be sci-fi? We're talking about a mutagen getting into the water and mutating a bunch of turtles and a rat and a bunch of other stuff. And then you also got a talking brain and
I don't know.
There's a crap ton of sci-fi elements to it.
There is.
Even the Americanized version of it.
Yeah. But I don't know that it would actually...
I mean, we've got Frankenstein, which the most sci-fi thing about it is Frankenstein gets hit by lightning.
Fair enough.
And the dude who makes Frankenstein, well, the monster, is called Dr. Frankenstein.
I don't know what other genre you could put it under, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's action, but... I mean, it's not fantasy. I would say that it falls into... I'm just surprised that it wouldn't be near the top here.
Yeah, one would think.
Okay, next one is Star Trek.
I enjoyed Star Trek.
Okay, you have to be specific there. There is a lot of Star Trek.
Okay, I enjoyed the Star Trek series that was on TV when I was in high school.
Which would be Star Trek Generations.
Okay. Yes, that one.
With Picard.
Yes.
Make it so, No.1. Yes. I just shat my pants.
I'm pretty sure that's not a line from that movie.
No.
From the series.
Well, it was a movie as well. 2.
I just remember the series.
2. 3. 3.
I just remember being sneaky and watching it after my dad had gone to bed because he didn't do the whole sci-fi thing.
Well, my parents did, so we watched it when it came out.
Awesome.
Together as a family. Yeah, I mean, I watched some of the original, like, Shatner stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Being an 80s and 90s kid, it was like, I couldn't get into it. But then again, to be perfectly honest, I went back to watch Star Trek Generations a couple of years ago. I was like, oh my god, why did I like this? Because it's so crap. Where's the 4K? It's just you get so. I mean, your average YouTube channel has more definition than some of those episodes of Star Trek Generations.
Fair enough.
But I'm pretty sure. I mean, we watched Star Trek Generations. We watched Voyager, Deep Space Nine.
Oh wow.
Those all came out kind of the same time. Generation was first, then Voyager, and then Deep Space Nine.
I think I remember the name Voyager.
Voyager had the female captain.
Yes.
Where
yes,
they were basically Lost in Space, but the Star Trek version of Lost in Space.
Yes. I watched that as well.
And then Deep Space Nine was the space station one with the Ferengi, the guys with the bat ears.
That actually sounds familiar too.
It was all around the same period.
It's possible I watched it all. I don't know, this is many years ago.
Yeah, more than a week ago.
Uh-huh.
I think the only one out of those three that got a movie was Star Trek Generations, and they got 3 movies.
I seem to recall
which
that.
was First Contact, Insurrection, and the last one with William Shatner in it, which was Star Trek 7, I think.
I can't even remember my birthday. But you remember the names of movies from, what, decades ago?
You have a birthday?
I do.
Since
I
when?
do.
Why didn't nobody tell me? And then, I mean, there's been a few Star Trek. I mean, I watched, I think, season 1 of the 2000s one. That was called Star Trek Enterprise.
That also sounds familiar.
Which is when it was like the first initial voyage, just after they'd made contact with the alien races.
Yeah.
So basically just after First Contact, the movie.
That
So when
sounds
the
familiar.
first spaceship of Enterprise was made and the first captain.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you 2 things that I remember about that.
Mm.
One, you're going to be meh about. The other one, you might punch me in the head about.
Uh-huh.
Number 1 is the captain was the dude from Quantum Leap.
Oh my word. Yeah. Yeah. I learned something new.
And the second one, as the Vulcan chick, had big boobs. Booba. She could probably launch those through a torpedo and cause weapons of mass destruction.
Okay, that I don't remember, but that wouldn't have been something that stuck in my mind.
They displayed them prominently. The actress had this very big habit of the underarm hold-up thing that they do to like emphasize the boobs.
Yeah.
So she would always be angry at the captain, then holding her hands up and then popping the
boobs up,
the boobies up, and you'd be like, okay,
that's pretty.
I don't know what you're saying, but
but I'll happily watch you.
Pretty much. You know, in case of an accident, deploy fun bags. No,
Boys.
Doctor Who.
Oh.
The thing I have with this is Doctor Who is definitely broken up into 2 portions, at least 2 portions, which is the modern portion and then the older portion.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about Doctor Who before the modern portion, but I hadn't seen too much of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really broadcast in this country, the old stuff, especially before the 2009 one, which is 12 years ago now.
Yeah, I don't feel old at all.
No. I think there was a movie before that in the 2000s, and we watched that.
Mm-hmm.
But Doctor Who was a big thing when my dad was young.
Oh.
So he used to talk about it. So
Yeah.
I knew it second hand from him.
Yeah.
Doctor Who, and I think we watched some of the series on one of the channels on TV.
Oh wow.
But I can't remember.
Yeah.
And then they rebooted it in 2009.
Yeah. Which
is the modern one. So and the 2 very different ones, I think.
I think I've only seen a couple of episodes of the old one. I tried watching from the beginning, but it was just...
You're watching those original black and white ones,
Yeah.
So
it ain't pretty.
It isn't. You can barely see what... I mean, the way my dad talks about it, because it was one of the first programs that he saw on a TV.
Yeah.
Not just they had radio growing up, and TV
Yeah.
was a new thing.
Yeah.
So it was one of the few first programs that he saw ever, full stop.
Oh, wow.
And it was like revolutionary stuff to him. And you
Yeah.
go look at the stuff, and you're like, I don't know what's going on. It looks like two bats fighting in a snowstorm to me.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a polar bear in there, maybe.
Yeah, the quality leaves a lot to be desired by
There's-
today's standards.
There's a lot of them that are missing.
Oh, wow.
There was because the old film that they used to record on
Mm-hmm.
was highly flammable.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it happened all the time. There's a lot of movies that have disappeared because of this.
Oh,
So
that's sad.
The two main things that happen is, one, they go up in flames, and BBC had a massive fire where they lost a good chunk of the Doctor Who stuff.
Oh, no.
And then the other one, the same film, is that it's like two bits of plastic with stuff inside,
Yeah.
or layers of stuff. And then as it ages, if it's not stored correctly, those layers separate. And it basically just destroys and falls apart.
Oh, my word.
And I mean, when you're making this stuff, you don't think that people are going to be watching it 100 years.
Yeah.
Or 70 years at this point.
Yeah.
Into the future. The cool thing about the Doctor Who stuff is after the fire and all of that, this was just when they would not have this broadcasting like now, where there's one big central place.
Yeah.
So they sold the rights to other people to broadcast it in their countries and stuff.
Okay.
So they would make copies of the reels and send them.
Yeah.
So when people heard that there was this big fire,
Mhm.
they sent the reels back, the copied reels. So they managed to recoup a whole bunch of them, but there's still good chunks of them that are missing of the original series.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's just the way it is.
Oh, my word.
They reckon that there's more movies that have disappeared than from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s than we have, just that we know about, that exists now.
Wow.
Just because the format that they were stored in and
Yeah.
the way that they were stored just led to the destruction.
Oh, my word.
Or they got thrown away.
Good grief.
If you don't see the value in it 20, 30, 40 years from now,
Fair enough.
and you're not going to keep it around.
No. Especially, I suppose, at that stage, everything was advancing so quickly that the next time there was a big jump in quality or the way things were done, then you go and check out all the old stuff because it's not up to scratch anymore.
Well, and I mean, they also took up massive space. I mean,
True.
these are multiple canister reels that are multiple kilograms.
Yeah.
And they take up real physical space.
Yeah, those things are huge.
Although I saw an interesting thing the other day, which was like the year that The Wizard of Oz was released, there was like 70 other movies released from that same studio. Not the other studios, just that studio.
Wow.
So they were crapping out movies left, right, and center.
Yeah. Good grief.
And I mean, most of those are lost to time as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be the same as like not even our college films and C, D, E rate films or direct to DVD films that we have now.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those will probably get lost to time.
Oh, yeah. That's hectic.
The nature of technology.
Oh, yeah.
It moves on, and then stuff happens. War of the Worlds you were talking about, it is on our list.
Yes.
So,
I keep getting to the part where the alien starts shooting at everybody and, like, killing people.
that's like right in the beginning.
It is right in the beginning. And then after that, he gets into a cart or on a horse or something, and he's leaving the area, and yeah, that's kind of where my attention span just goes left.
The funny thing is, for me, I saw it as the black and white film.
Oh,
And I always remember it as it was like, they looked like meatballs with legs and an eye.
yes.
It was just, that always struck me. It was like, that's weird. I mean, I watched it when I was very young, so I didn't know really what was happening and whatever.
Yeah.
So whenever I saw it again, it was like, meh, whatever. I've seen it. I don't want to watch it again. It didn't make sense. I mean, there is one stupid thing of that movie that you have to acknowledge. The amount of diseases and bacteria between a dog and a human that are deadly are very minimal.
Yeah.
So why would the bacteria of humans have any effect on not only aliens, but mechanical aliens?
You have a point. A very good point.
I mean, okay, I can't remember how they were described in the book or the original movie, but the, what's his name? The chin guy. Short guy. Actor. The modern one. Holy crap. The name is just gone.
Getting old.
The Scientology guy.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm remembering that one where all the robots were mechanical.
Okay.
So if you think about how we deal with going to the bottom of the ocean or anything like that, we have seals and airlocks and all of that stuff. So why would random bacteria just be a problem?
Because
I mean, it's a good idea. It's like, you know, the little list of things that you don't consider can ruin the best laid plans. But it's still, you sort of go, I don't think it works like that. This isn't a race that's advanced enough to travel across the stars. And they don't study the planet before they land?
Well, it was a crash landing.
No, it wasn't. It was an invasion.
Yeah, there were several of them, but it's a crash landing. I mean, it's not like they
planned it. It was an invasion.
Yes. But it's not like they had the greatest technology, otherwise they wouldn't have crash landed.
Well,
they would have
made
landed
it across
properly.
the stars, so they should have some. They had lasers.
True.
In times that we didn't even know what a laser was.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, this is an advanced civilization that, instead of orbiting around the Earth a couple times before they do a drop, you know, scan the planet, maybe figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
Is they drop in, they start stirring crap up, and then they get eaten by bacteria.
Yes.
The common cold kicks their ass. Which, I mean, I've had the common cold. It's fair enough, but there is no reason why our common cold should affect them.
I don't know. There's people that die of flu every year.
Yeah, but they have a different biology than us. They have a different planet than us. And there's really two ways you can go there. But our bacteria would not know how to deal with their physiology.
No, it wouldn't.
I mean, maybe if they'd been around for years.
Something could have mutated or...
Yeah. But I mean, this has all happened in a very short period of time.
True.
So I find it very unlikely. Although, I suppose, it's fiction.
It's fiction.
Some science fiction leans more on the science part and others more on the fiction part.
Oh, yeah. Some of it's
I mean,
highly
the fact
fiction.
that it was written in, 1900s?
Yeah. I mean...
when bacteria was still new.
Yeah. I mean, he was a visionary.
Well, no. He was and he wasn't. He was like, well, there are some predictions he made that were very accurate, but then there was also a crap load that he made that weren't.
Yeah.
Same with Tesla, same with a bunch of the other visionaries. But it always brings the question is like, well, did they predict the future, or did the people inventing technology read those, enjoy that type of content, and was like, well, I'm going to make a cell phone. That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. And then boom.
There you go. But it's called, you're trying to think about rationally where you're going with current technology.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making wild predictions. It's like Nostradamus.
Yeah.
I mean, he made so many predictions that, yes, some of them might be right.
Yeah.
But statistically, that's normal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we don't know if he was visioning what we classify as cell phones, or looking back, we go, hey, look, that vaguely describes a cell phone.
Yeah.
And we'll never know.
No.
And where do we go? Back to the Future, which is the picture here of Marty McFly.
Mm-hmm.
Not the original actor of Back to the Future.
I don't know that.
No.
Do tell.
In fact, the original actor is still in the movie. It's the dad in the past. He was the character that was the actor that was supposed to play Marty McFly, and they actually started recording.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened. I can't remember what. And Michael J. Fox applied for the role, and he was way better at it.
Oh my.
So they shifted that actor to the dad character.
Yeah.
And then they reshot everything.
Oh my word. But he couldn't have been impressed about that.
Well, he was okay enough with it to stay in the movie.
To carry on, true enough.
But I suppose a paycheck is a paycheck.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's an iconic movie, especially for kids of the 80s. Back to the Future was huge, especially Back to the Future 2, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, old time. I think that appealed to our parents more.
Very much.
Going back into the past when our parents were young.
Yeah.
But going into the future was like, oh my god, hoverboards and,
Yeah.
all the technology which we still don't have.
Uh-huh.
Why does the hoverboard not work over water? There is no adequate explanation.
No.
And then how can you get so much energy out of rubbish?
Yeah. That one's a good question.
Although I suppose they can time travel with enough energy from a lightning bolt.
True.
So.
Which is impressive.
But I always loved Doc Brown. He's like, he made that for me.
Yeah.
I think the dynamic between the two is just a crazy scientist.
Yeah.
But I mean, the merch
awesome.
back in the day was also, they massively pushed that merch. Back to the Future stuff.
Yeah.
For kids, there was tons of stuff.
Oh my word.
I think there was even a cartoon, maybe.
I think so.
There was a bunch of cartoons of a lot of popular movies.
Yeah.
Although I was surprised that Ghostbusters aren't in the top list here. Looking at the top list.
Yeah.
If we got Back to the Future, because that was the same sort of time period.
Yeah.
And I would say that is also sci-fi.
Yeah.
You're following 4 scientists.
Fair enough.
I mean, yes, all the science that they're talking about is but it's 4 scientists doing scientific stuff.
Fair
And
enough.
because of the scientific shenanigans cause the apocalypse, basically.
See, science is dangerous.
Meh.
Horror, not so much. You're gonna die. You know this. It's not dangerous.
You're in a creaky old house by yourself. You know your fate.
Don't run up the stairs. It's simple.
I'm going to leave Marvel and DC to the end because they're quite broad subjects.
Very.
Jurassic Park was huge as a kid.
Yeah, that was
well,
massive.
I would have been a teenager. You know that Jurassic Park, the original one, is old enough to drink. More than old enough to drink.
Oh my word.
Well, that was 1995.
I remember watching it when it just came out in cinemas. I remember, but I think it was like the second movie ever I'd seen in a cinema, and my mom dragged me there, and I loved it. It was amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like 1995, which would make it 26 years old now.
Jeez. That's a scary number.
That is a scary number.
I feel a little bit older now.
But this is also the sort of period of time when we were still way behind international releases.
Yeah.
I mean, today it's very common that there is an international, or most films, released in the same weekend across the world.
Yeah.
But back then, I don't know about other countries, but here, most movies, we were 6 months out.
Yeah.
And that was for like the top movies. Your average movie probably be a year. That's even if it goes to cinema. It might just go to tape first.
Yeah, true.
So I think that one was one of the first ones where it was like 2 months after international release.
That would make sense, yeah.
So there was a lot of hype around it.
I remember when I went to Canada when I was 15, and I had just seen Deep Sea Blue in South Africa, and it was like all the rave. And I went there and I was talking to some chick about my age, and I was saying how, I loved the movie, and she's like, oh, yeah, that was a while ago. Like half a year to a year.
Yeah. I mean, if memory serves, and I could very much be wrong, but I think Lord of the Rings 1 was one of the first international releases that we had, which we had with everybody in the world. And that was like a midnight release.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
For us. And I, as far as I remember, I think that was one of the first ones that was that big that we were like the same weekend as everybody else.
Yeah.
Up until then, it was months,
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
or even if it came out at
Even
all.
if it came, yeah.
E.T.
E.T. phone home.
Yeah, because apparently his cell phone broke.
That's why he uses his finger.
No, he used a shortwave radio.
Oh, fair enough.
It is an odd movie.
It is.
But most of Spielberg's movies are, if you think about it too much, they're a bit odd.
Very much. Very, very much.
I haven't watched it in years. I remember when it came out, and I was like, eh.
I liked it, and then, like, a couple of months later, I watched it again, and I was like, what the hell? The only part I find interesting is that it was Drew Barrymore that played the little girl. I was like, wow, she's been around a while.
And that's about it. I think the little boy, might still be acting, but I can't remember. But I mean, for me, my house, my mom and dad preferred horror and so, like, real hard sci-fi. So E.T. was like meh, but Alien, like the movie Alien.
Yeah.
I was like, I watched that and it was like, oh my god, I love this movie.
Well, what's not to love?
It's not E.T.
It's not E.T.
So, I mean, it's the same as like the Wall-E stuff. It's all feel-good stuff.
Yeah,
and
very
catchphrase.
much.
I mean, if we're going with a Spielberg movie, which I actually enjoyed more, but also related to Aliens, which would be Close Encounters.
Yes.
I enjoyed that movie way more than I enjoyed E.T.
Yeah, me too.
Even though there was less like direct alien stuff.
Yeah. The hint.
Well, there was you knew that there were aliens, especially near the end there with the communicating and all of that. But it is there wasn't aliens involved. It wasn't like this shriveled little whatever the hell it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, also, it's like, who the hell forgets their kid behind for months?
Yeah.
Maybe that would try to hint at something.
Quite possibly.
You mean when the parents come around, they lose the kid didn't get you by itself. They forgot it, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
So the parents forget it. They f*** off. For months at a time. I was like, what is this? The original Home Alone?
Home Alone with a twist.
Yeah. Home Alone 0.
Yeah.
Alien edition. Extraterrestrial edition. Bad Parenting 101.
Honey, I forgot the kid.
Yeah, very much. So then we've got DC and Marvel, which are big now. I suppose. DCU and the MCU. But I don't know whether this is talking about the comics, the old movies, the pre-MCU Marvel cinema. Not Marvel Studio movies, or the Marvel Studio movies, or all of them. Because, I mean, there were actually a bunch of Marvel movies out before that.
Yeah?
I mean, one
that people don't know about?
Well, that kind of fell through the cracks, and not even all of them were bad. I mean, everybody remembers, like, the Fantastic Four, which was kind of cringeworthy, but Blade.
Yes.
That was huge.
Yeah?
That came out just around the same sort of time as Matrix.
Yes.
And I remember everybody talking about Blade.
Oh,
that
yes.
It was actually even an obscure Marvel character.
Oh, my word.
But on none of the promotional stuff. Because I was, actually, remember, I was in 17, 18 when that came out. 09. Yeah, no, 17, 18. And there wasn't any, this is a Marvel character.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. They didn't market it as that. It was just a vampire horror movie.
Yes.
And then, I mean, if you happen to be a comic fan, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember this guy.
Yeah.
Because he was also in the animated, I want to say, Spider-Man.
Okay.
There's a bunch of them. They're called the Midnight Suns. No, this is memory stuff, so I'm probably going to get raked over the coals. But there's a bunch of characters like undead, vampire, tangent characters.
Okay.
So that fall into that same sort of universe.
Yeah.
Morpheus was one of them, and then Blade was one of them as well. And I think Johnny Blaze as well, which was Ghost Rider. So these are like the mythical sort of beings / vampires / ghouls.
Yeah.
And I remember Morpheus was in the Spider-Man cartoon from the 80s.
Oh, wow.
And I think Blade was as well. Or 90s, whatever that cartoon was.
That rings a bell. That does ring a bell.
But he was also in the car, because he was against the Punisher quite a lot.
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
So if you knew the comics, you were like, oh, there's that thing over there. But I mean, there's been a couple of movies over the years that have been comics based on comic books, but they never actually marketed it as such. Two that I can think of off the top of my head are Kingsman.
Oh my word.
Which is based off a comic.
I don't know that.
Yep.
Good grief.
And Red. R-E-D.
Mm.
Retired Extremely Dangerous. The one
Yes.
that Bruce Willis. That's also a comic.
Yeah, that one I did know.
So.
Crazy.
Well, I mean, it depends on which audience. I mean, before the Marvel studio and the Marvel, even beginning, like Iron Man 1, it wasn't popular to market stuff as like comic book film or a comic book universe. So it's just
I didn't know it had anything to do with comic books when I first watched it.
So they just made the movie and it'd be like, hey, this is a movie. And if you happen to know that it was a comic book, then it's a comic book.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing, they did a movie of that. That was also a comic book.
Yes.
Constantine, they never mentioned that it was based off of a comic book.
I didn't know until you told me.
So, I mean, there's been quite a few over the years where they've taken, we'll call it inspiration from comic books and named their movies the same thing, but just vaguely inspired. 30 Days a Night was another one. It was a horror film.
Good grief.
Was a comic book.
Yeah. I'm aware.
Walking Dead, one of the most popular zombie.
Yes. That one I did know.
That was a big comic book series.
Yeah, that one.
But it wasn't, marketed as a comic book.
No.
Although technically, I suppose, none of the Marvel stuff now. Marvel is more known as Marvel Studios than Marvel comic books.
Fair enough.
I mean, everybody's like, oh yeah, there's the comic book thing. But when you think of Marvel, you're thinking Marvel movie, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's DC. Which I personally think the DC animated cartoons from the 90s, those always stick out to me.
Yeah.
Batman and all of that stuff.
They were beautifully done, yeah.
Well, I mean, also, random weird fact. Do you know who has played the Joker as an actor more often than any other?
Mm-mm.
Or do you want to take a guess?
No.
It's Mark Hamill. That would be Luke Skywalker.
Oh my word.
He has voice acted as the Joker. He did it in the animated series, and I think in like almost every single major animated movie from DC Universe, it's been Mark Hamill.
Oh my word.
As the Joker.
Oh my word, that's so cool.
Because he was in an accident.
Oh.
Just after, because he disappeared after Star Wars.
Yes.
But he was in an accident and he had his face done in.
Oh no.
He was in a car accident. I can't remember the details, but because of that, he couldn't get any. He was out of acting for a while, and then when he came back, he was out of favor and stuff, and he had scarring on it. You can still see the scarring on his face. So he couldn't get any work, so he did a lot of voice acting.
Wow.
And one of his roles just happened to be the Joker.
Oh my word.
So he plays two in this list. He's in Star Wars and he's in DC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You go, dude.
And for the movies, I've watched a couple. Meh. But then, to be perfectly honest, I'm off the Marvel MCU movies as well.
Yeah.
It's just the same reason why I started disliking the Marvel comics is why I've started disliking the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
To watch any movie, you would have had to have watched every other movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Marvel comics at one point, they had this cross, I wouldn't say posting, but it's not posting. It's, you had to buy several comics from different franchises within Marvel to complete one story.
Yeah.
So you would have like a team up between Spider-Man and X-Men. And half the story would be in the Spider-Man comics and half the story would be in the X-Men comics. Oh. So if you read the X-Men comics in order of the numbers, there'd be chunks missing.
Oh, no.
And if you read the Spider-Man comics in chunks, in the order of the numbering, there would be chunks missing. You'd have to go and buy
But that's just annoying.
That-
Especially if you're not, like, keeping up with what exactly is happening, when is happening.
Well, yeah, you mean you may not be necessarily collecting Spider-Man comics.
No.
Now all of a sudden you get the latest X-Men and you have to go buy a bunch of Spider-Man
Yeah.
comics, and then you also have to go buy an X-Force comic, and then you also have to go buy an Iron Man comic, and then maybe a Fantastic Four comic.
Oh, no.
I mean, the worst and kind of best one of this
Yeah.
culminated in Civil War. This is
Yes.
the Marvel comic Civil War,
Yes.
not the movie Civil War.
Yes.
And that one, they released as individual things. So you could buy Civil War 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there would be the relevant comics
Yeah.
in the series. So it was like a dual series.
Okay.
So it'd be like Spider-Man 365
Yeah.
and Civil War 10.
Okay.
So you could say, I want the Civil War series.
Yes.
And then after the whole thing, they offered it as like a pack.
Okay.
So you could kind of keep going, because that crossed everybody. That went into every
Yeah.
comic book,
Yeah.
every franchise that they had.
Oh,
Civil
no.
War. There was something happening in the Civil War.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I remember correctly, DC at that time wasn't doing as much of that stuff.
Okay.
But I went and started reading Image comics and, other off-prints, Todd McFarlane stuff.
Okay.
Because you didn't have to buy 20 comics to
Yeah.
read one storyline. You could
Yeah.
just buy one comic, follow the storyline.
Fair enough.
But now the Marvel movies are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You
Very
need to
much.
have watched all the Marvel movies up to this point, and all the ones in the current phase specifically,
Yeah.
to know what's going on with. I don't care about this character. It's never. Whatever character, doesn't matter what character it is.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that character. I like this character. Why do I have to go watch that movie?
Yeah.
If the character or the actor or whatever, I don't like that one. I just
Yeah.
want to watch this one.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I fell off with the Marvel. I mean, I was loving it and just devouring as it came out. And now it's like, no.
I mean, I like the idea of building a universe where all these characters are working separately and then they build towards like a central
Yeah.
thing. That was interesting in like phase 1.
Yeah.
But now phase 4 or whatever we're on,
They're milking it.
you
They
have
really are
to. There
milking
are
it.
series that you have had to have watched. There are movies that you have had to have watched just to know all the subtext for this current movie.
Yeah. Which
Not
is,
just the previous one of this movie.
you can't just sit down and watch a movie. You've
Yeah.
got this whole history you have to know.
Yeah, and if you don't watch all of that stuff, you can still probably watch it, but you're not going to enjoy it nearly as much.
No. You won't.
So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting when it started. Now, it's just too complicated.
Yeah, they've milked it beyond the point of being milked.
Yeah. And, I think that's the first tier.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you put in the first tier that you can think of?
I thought of something now, and now I can't remember.
Now is a South African colloquialism.
My bad. No?
The same as just now. Now and just now are both annoying,
My bad.
even though I do say them.
You do. You do.
Well, everybody says them
In South Africa.
in South Africa.
No? That's it. Oh, Alien. Surely Alien should be in there.
I don't know, because it's a horror. It was R-rated. I mean, you're looking at this top one is all PG stuff. So,
Oh,
I mean, that would have
very
been the
true.
biggest audience. If you look at, like, the second one, there's some PG stuff, and there's some R-rated stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Predator and all of that. So, spoilers. Spoilers for the next episode for Tier 2. So, I mean, it might be a bit later on, but if it isn't, I would have put it in, like, Tier 2
Yeah.
rather
yeah.
than Tier 1. Because it's not something... I mean, I watched it as a kid, but most kids weren't allowed to watch stuff
No,
like
I
that.
wasn't.
But then again, I also watched Hellraiser as a kid.
Fair enough. But then, I don't know, I mean, if you're looking at it from the point of view of how popular it was and how much people know, how many people know about it, I mean, surely Aliens would be way up there before Halo.
No, because Halo you would have played as a kid.
True.
I mean, Xbox was bigger in US than PlayStation. especially we'll say the modern era of 2000s, pre-2000s, your Xbox would have been more popular than a PlayStation.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I knew lots of people that had a PlayStation 1.
But not an Xbox.
But I don't remember anybody having an Xbox.
Okay.
I remember people having an SNES, Super Nintendo's gaming system.
Yes.
Entertainment system.
Yes.
But I don't remember anybody having the Xbox.
I can't actually think of anybody I know either.
The first Xbox that I can remember in this country was the Xbox 360, which is the one I bought for 3 months.
Oh my word.
So, and I mean, in this country, kids you'd probably know Crash Bandicoot more than you would Halo.
Yeah.
But because as most kids around that time would have, or Mario.
Yes.
Because SNES was here.
Mm.
So as a kid, you would know Mario.
Mm.
An isekai story from another time. It is.
I know. I haven't actually thought of it that way, but yeah.
Technically, Alice in Wonderland is an isekai story.
Oh my word, yes.
Just, if there's anybody that's like a big anime YouTuber, they need to learn the difference between a lit RPG and an isekai. No, seriously, the amount of big anime guys that combine the two things together.
Okay.
Isekai is portal fantasy.
Yes.
So, if you go to another world, dimension, universe, you die, or whatever. You don't even have to die. You just go. You can't come back. It's a one-way trip.
Okay, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be a way back, but it's not like an open portal both ways.
Okay.
That's an isekai.
Okay.
But when you've got, like, leveling up and stat systems and all of that, that's not an isekai. That's lit RPG.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you've got plenty of isekai, even in Japan, plenty of isekai that don't have stat systems.
Okay.
It's just a stranger in a strange land.
Yes.
Gulliver's Travels would also be an isekai, probably.
Yes.
But lit RPG, which most of the big anime guys conflate the two together. It's like the game world. So they'll go, like, if you're going into a VR MMO, which is popular, they call that an isekai, which is like, no, it's not. It's just a lit RPG.
Yeah.
He's not actually going to another place. Even if they, I mean, the big one is, oh, crap. Sword Art Online. Alrighty, we took a quick break. I needed the bathroom quickly, so we went and did the human stuff that one has to do, and we're back.
And I'm a lot less thirsty.
And we got more drinks and stuff. It's taking a little long, which is good. It's not bad. It's a nice little conversation. Anyway, so we were talking about Sword Art Online.
Yes.
Which is a massively popular anime. And a manga. And what happens, the main basic story is it's an online MMORPG. So, MMORPG would be... No, VRMR MMORPG. So, virtual reality. And in this world, well, in most VR, MMORPG, lit RPG novels, it is fully immersive.
Okay.
So it's not like our current VR rigs. It's like Matrix, basically. You're jacking in, whether it's a headset or a pod or a direct neural interface into the brain. So you're inputting signals so that you feel like you're there.
Okay.
So it's the basic premise, and it's not only Sword Art Online. There's actually quite a few of them. Where, the first one I remember is Log Horizon, but people can debate the merits of Sword Art Online and Log Horizon. So everybody's playing this brand new game, and somebody does dastardly stuff and locks everybody in the game.
Oh, okay.
And if they die in the game, they die in real life.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people refer to it as isekai. It's like, but it's not. It's a VMR MMO.
Yeah.
It's a lit RPG. It is just fundamentally, they are in a computer program.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there are some nice ones. I can't remember which one it is. Where it was a VMR story. And then it becomes an isekai. Or it starts off and you think that it's an isekai, and it turns out that it's actually a VR MMO.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I've seen a lot of anime YouTubers conflate the two.
I can see how that would happen.
Well, I can't, but this is stuff that I deal with in the non-sci-fi portion of my channel.
Yeah.
With the whole lit RPG stuff. It's basically just Dungeons and Dragons fiction. Or fiction with a rule set. I mean, there's even a more obscure one, which is called system-based, or system. So it's our world, but somebody enforces a game-like system on our world.
Oh my word,
so
okay.
that's also not an isekai, because they're not going anywhere. They're in the same world.
Yeah.
So that would be a system lit RPG.
Oh my word, okay.
So, I mean, and it was
Jeez.
quite an you don't see the tag lit RPG used in anything really other than web novels.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
Which is ebooks for Kindle and stuff.
Yes.
But you don't really see it in like anime and movies and stuff like that.
No.
It's just something that I noticed.
Yeah.
But I mean, technically, both lit RPG and lit RPG is science fiction, but isekai could be fantasy. Isekai isn't inherently a science fiction thing.
Yeah.
If you think about something like Alice in Wonderland, there is no science fiction in that. It's a fantasy.
Yeah. But it does have isekai. Well,
it is
isekai. Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm saying is isekai isn't necessarily
sci-fi.
It is actually, I think, tends to be more fantasy.
Yes.
Whereas lit RPG is more science fiction.
Yes.
There are rules and regulations. There's an overarching system in place. I suppose it could be fantasy. I don't know. A lot of lit RPG is fantasy based.
Yes. That makes sense.
I suppose it depends on who the system is. Depends on whether it is a fantasy or a sci-fi.
Yeah.
I mean, you get close to any of these lines and they get blurry of what is one genre or another genre.
Yes.
And can't you have a fantasy and a science fiction?
That would be cool.
Well, there are a couple. I mean, there's
Dwarves in space.
There is that. I've done a story like that.
Oh my word.
She doesn't listen to my channel.
No, I don't.
She'd be very upset.
I'm not upset.
Not you. Them.
Oh, yes. Well, don't get angry at me. I'm a horror chick. I'm not a sci-fi chick.
She doesn't even listen to my YouTube channel.
I used to.
Way back when.
Uh-huh.
But not anymore.
No. You just pump out way too much content for me to keep up.
I would say I pump up way too much content for even me to keep up, but...
But somehow you manage.
Somehow I have to. Sorry, I'm faffing around with my microphone. Whoever's editing this is going to have a wonderful time with that.
I'm thrilled.
But yeah, I mean...
on your lap.
So the cat wants in yours.
Yes.
The dog can sit down. Be a good boy. You want dog? Okay, come. You want a podcast? Okay, we have a dog. Ugh. Are we getting comfortable? Or we're just going to headbutt the microphone?
There we go.
There we go. There's a nice comfy pooch, and I am uncomfortable, so this is the usual pet owner problem.
Uh-huh.
What does that say? Yeah, I mean, there are 2 series that I do which kind of broach that line of fantasy and science fiction. But I mean, there is the statement that any science fiction that is sufficiently advanced enough will appear no different than magic.
True.
To people.
Yeah.
So, who knows what is science fiction and what is fantasy?
That reminds me very much of that movie that I like so much. Seriously not well done. Seriously not a big name. Paradox. Where the normal world is actually magic based. And they somehow found a portal to our world, which is science based. Paradox, yes. It's a very low rated movie. I randomly saw it one very late night on TV.
I think maybe I can remember. It was like a sci-fi movie, a sci-fi channel movie.
I think so. I think so. But yeah, the world where everything starts out is everything is run by magic, and necromancers come in to do autopsies and.
Yes, it was a sci-fi movie, sci-fi channel movie back in the day.
Yes.
Or series. I think it was a movie.
It was a movie.
It was like a noir movie.
Yes. Yes.
And it was following a private investigator.
Yes.
Which he played Hercules.
Yes.
In the Hercules series.
My word.
Who are you again?
And you can't remember my birthday.
And I can't remember my birthday.
True, I had to remind you.
Yeah, and it followed the detective in the noir style, but it was in the main universe was the magic universe,
yes.
And he was trying to figure out what was killing people and stuff.
Yes.
And it turned out it was a dude with a Glock or something.
Yeah, it was a guy with just a plain gun.
Yeah.
And this was like, oh my gosh, because it was science-based.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and then they found a portal to Winston Churchill. Something crazy like that.
But, I mean, there are a couple. I mean, technically, there's a scene in not Harry Potter. I've never read Harry Potter.
Me neither. I could not get into it.
No. When it came out, I was being snobbish about fantasy. No, I mean, it was like, you're reading Dragonlance, you're reading Shannara series, you're reading Lord of the Rings, and then Harry Potter comes out, and it's like, yeah, that's like fantasy light.
Yeah, very.
No, that's not what I was talking about. I was thinking about Terry Pratchett.
Yes.
His main character, Rincewind.
Okay.
In one of the books, I can't remember which one, he steps through a portal and accidentally wakes up in an airplane.
Oh gosh. Oh my word.
As himself. But I mean, it's briefly. It's just one scene.
Yeah.
And then he's back into his normal body. And he couldn't understand how he was in a metal tube in the sky because he was in an airplane.
Yes.
He looked out the window and he couldn't figure out how he was flying and anything like that.
Oh my word.
So, I mean, it's been done. Not a lot, but it has been done.
Yeah.
Retreat Hell is one of the series, and then Out of Space is another series that I can think of that sort of cover both lines from two very different ways of covering those lines.
Okay.
Retreat Hell, a portal appears, and then that portal is between two different worlds. One is a fantasy-based magic system, and then our universe, this world.
Okay.
And then there's a war, and we're bringing our technology to their war. And we're fighting in a magic-based. So you got a guy casting a lightning bolt, and you shoot him in the head with a AR-15 sort of thing. But they've got like shields. Force fields.
Yeah.
Which they can use, but we don't have that technology.
No.
Because it's based off of our technology now, so it's not a future version of us. It's like our technology level.
Yeah, I don't think we'd hold up too well.
Well, I mean, it's the ever spear versus shield thing. You make a better spear, you get a better shield. You make a better shield, they get a better spear. But ours is based off of physics. Theirs is based off of magic. So there would be some places where we're overwhelmed them, but in other places they would overwhelm us, where we don't have a defense because it's never been considered.
No.
So
I'd love to be able to pop into a bubble and stop walking into things and bumping my little toe on the furniture in the middle of the night. And
I think everybody would. And then the other one is Out of Space, which is a web series which they crash land on a planet, and that planet happens to be a magic-based planet. Okay. Very different styles of writing, very different approaches on the same subject matter. Okay. So it is a medieval magic-based society, and it's a stranded crew with their modern science, trying to recreate modern science on this backward to them planet. Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
So I mean, there's even there's a bunch of anime and manga about it as well. I mean, technically, any isekai, most isekai, you're going from a science-based our universe to a fantasy-based other universe.
Yeah.
Whether that is a game-based universe, but most of the time it's a magic-based universe.
Interesting.
So have you thought of anything else that needs to be added to the top of this list?
No. That's it.
I'm trying to think. The problem is you see so much media and stuff. I mean, sci-fi is such any genre is so big these days.
Yeah. It's all flooded.
Well, it's just because you've got books, you've got games, you've got TV series, you've got movies, you've got anime, you've got manga.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the world creating content to fill these spaces.
Yeah.
So even though sci-fi isn't necessarily a common genre that people look for, it has still got massive amounts of stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
And to think what is common, I don't know what's common. I know what I know.
Yes.
And whether that, I mean, like I said, I'd see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the top. Would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters would make sense to me. But I mean, I also don't know who made this list.
Yeah.
This is just one person's list. This is not a consensus. This is not anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just one person. Like, this is what they think is the most common. And then getting more obscure and more obscure.
Yeah.
And when you've grown up with a certain group of people, they're going to enjoy the same sorts of stuff as you.
Yes.
So you can go, well, you know, me and all my friends enjoyed this movie. That doesn't mean all kids enjoy that movie.
No.
Or even all kids were allowed to see that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, because you got to see movies that most kids weren't allowed to watch.
Yeah, but also before 94, a lot of stuff was banned.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been able to see most media, especially horror and sci-fi and that sort of genre stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that stuff got lost in the weeds.
Mm.
Which we would have only been able to really watch after 94.
Yeah. True.
So there is that. I mean, yes, the original It, which is technically also a sci-fi. Well,
yes.
not the original. Oh, all of it. The book.
Yeah.
Is a sci-fi.
Yeah, it is.
Because
vaguely.
No, well, it's as much of a sci-fi as E.T. is.
True. Good point.
I mean, it's almost the same story.
True. Now that you point that out.
It's spoiler alert if you haven't seen the 20-year-old movie, or however old it is, the TV series, the original miniseries, or the new one.
Yeah.
It's an alien entity trying to get back home.
Yeah.
Which is basically what E.T. is.
Yeah.
It's just the methods of how they choose to do. I mean, I don't know whether it wants to get back home. It. But it is an alien that uses brainwaves. But I mean, it's an alien, so sci-fi.
True. Very true.
A lot of horror comes from sci-fi.
Yes.
I mean, some of your most classic horror films are sci-fi.
Elaborate.
Well, the what is it? Yeah, the one in Antarctica, where you've got that monster that just takes over cells.
Oh yes.
That's sci-fi. It's an alien from outer space. It's
yes.
Yeah. Well, you name the horror film. You're the horror buff. Saw. He's an engineer.
Yeah, but that's got nothing to do with sci-fi.
Yeah, but all of his traps, especially the later ones, are leaning more on the science fiction side than reality.
Yeah, I guess, to a degree. Final Destination.
Okay, Final Destination is one of the ones that is paranormal. So, paranormal would be most of your... And then most of the others is basically sci-fi.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of...
Carrie is telekinetic, which could be classified as sci-fi. If you're talking about like next step in human evolution, if you're thinking about it from that point of view, it could be...
You could look at it like that. I'm trying to think of something that would blur those lines, because
Alien.
I'd imagine it would fall either into paranormal or into science fiction from this point of view.
Yeah. I mean, Alien is sci-fi. Predator is sci-fi.
But they're horrors too.
The some of the biggest horrors.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Hellraiser.
Yes.
But that's paranormal. And could actually even be argued as an isekai.
Yes. Very true.
Or even science fiction, because you're going portals between other worlds.
Yes.
Freddy Krueger.
Oh, that was the other one I was thinking of. The one with the big portal.
Event Horizon.
Was the series, no,
Stargate. I think it's later in the list.
Ah.
I could be wrong.
Because that was big in South Africa.
No, it is. It's the first one in the next tier.
Ah.
Yes. I mean, big is relative. I mean, it's not Frankenstein, it's not E.T., it's not Doctor Who.
No, it's not.
So, I mean, you're talking...
Although Doctor Who in South Africa...
It was quite big, because it was on DSTV.
Oh, okay.
So
we didn't have DSTV.
This would be in 2009. Is when it started.
We would have had DSTV.
And there was a lot of advertising around it.
I don't even remember. It was a while ago.
But yeah, I mean, Stargate, I would say, is probably... It is a bit more obscure than...
It is.
Especially when you go into, like, or the other Stargate.
Yes.
I mean, Stargate, did you watch the movie?
Mm-mm.
There you go. For a very long time, it was only the movie.
Oh. Alright. No, I've never seen a movie yet.
That was the first one. It was the first concept. The TV series was made after and based off of the movie.
I have a movie to go find and watch.
With Kurt Russell.
Yes.
And the guy who played the scientist is the same guy.
Oh, cool.
But Kurt Russell didn't want to do the series. So they got MacGyver.
Yes. Crazy world.
So, I mean, a lot of your big horrors, they're going to be sci-fi as well.
Yeah.
If they're not purely or paranormal.
Yes. That makes sense, though. Because it's got to have that element.
Well, that other than normal element. And, I mean, most of your other than normal is going to be paranormal or science fiction.
Yes.
I mean, depending on how you look at it, a lot of stuff falls into science fiction that you wouldn't traditionally have called science fiction, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Most people wouldn't consider that science fiction, even though it is.
I wouldn't have. And rom-coms don't.
Depends on the rom-com.
I was about to say, I'm sure there's rom-coms in space.
Well, one of the big ones of late. I'm old, people. I'm old. My wife isn't. I'm not saying anything about her age. I'm old. So my definition of, recently could be a week. It could be a decade. But there was one vaguely sort of recently, which was Passengers, which is basically a rom-com in space. And if you don't think about it like that, is a creepy movie. Well, most rom-coms are, if you look at it in a rational way, you're like, that is not how people behave.
No.
That is very, very, very insane. But anyway.
And stalkerish in most cases.
Well, no, this one was especially that. If you haven't seen Passengers, just spoiler alert. So, this is also a common trope in science fiction, where you have a generation ship. No, sorry, it's not a generation ship, it's a sleeper ship. Okay, do you know what the difference between a generation ship, or what a generation ship is?
No.
Okay, so the theory of a generation ship is you're going to a place so far that you're not going to make it in one lifetime. Now, there's a couple ways you can do it, is put everybody on ice, which currently we can't do. There is no technology to revive people from. You can put them on ice.
Yeah.
But you can't get them back.
Yeah.
So cryosleep. So that's a sleeper ship.
Okay.
A generational ship is basically a functioning city in space.
Okay.
So
your next generations will end up at
you're
the place.
Yeah. So you're making basically a new country or whatever. And the people who are going to have to fly the ship tomorrow are your children.
Yeah. That's very Aeon Flux.
Yes. No, Aeon Flux was not a ship.
No, it wasn't a ship, but it was a generational thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was more about cloning
Yeah.
than it was. I mean, it's also way down the list.
Yes, it is.
But it's like the foot trekkers, which for us would be the settlers.
Yes.
How it took them decades to get up into the center of Africa, where it's, different families start off, and by the end, it's, they've married each other and had kids. It's like that, but done over hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Okay.
With tens of thousands of people.
Yes.
Technically, I suppose, the ship in Wally is a generational ship.
Yes.
Because one would have to assume that those blobs of flesh would have to reproduce somehow.
They do. There's scenes where there's babies.
Yeah, but we don't know how they reproduce because it's a Disney movie. So we're going to assume that the people who can't even stand up are somehow reproducing. We'll leave it at that. So
we'll leave that in the realms of science fiction.
Even though technically the AI is running everything, it is a generational ship, or was designed as a generational ship, and then somebody engaged the AI, which just took over.
Yeah.
And then the captain is just a role.
Yeah.
And then the robots are all of that. But technically, it would have started off as a generational ship.
I bumped something.
I think you turned off the power supply.
Oops. Is that going to cause a problem?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. My bad.
Laptop. Battery.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, that could be argued to be a generational ship. And there's some interesting stories out there based on generational ships, but then you're going more into like day-to-day life or slice of life stuff.
Yeah.
Rather than like an immediate one-time event.
To battle in 2,000 years.
Yeah. I mean, there is the conundrum that everything is so goddamn far apart that it makes for a boring story to get from here to there.
It would, yeah.
So you have to cut that out somehow. But generational ships, they're functioning cities in space, moving from point A to point B.
Yes.
If you watch Doctor Who, there is one. I can remember one specifically, which is the
library?
No. After, what is it? The third new Doctor. The third new one is 12th Doctor. The one with the brown hair. With all that brown hair.
I was about to say.
The one after Ian Tennant.
Oh,
Matt Smith.
Yes.
I think
so.
One of the first ones there, they go into a ship that's on a space whale.
Yes.
That would have been a generational ship.
Ah. Okay.
Except that, the space whale is doing all the management stuff and it's a monarchy. But it's basically, it's functioning as a country. It's a self-sustaining country.
Yes.
So nobody's going into cryogenesis. There's no faster than light travel.
Yeah.
You're spending innumerable... Your life, your kids' lives, your grandkids' lives.
Yeah.
Everyone for a foreseeable amount of time.
Just missioning through space.
Going from point A to point B.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah. I have no idea what the original point was. I don't know where we were.
I have no idea.
How we got to generational ships.
I don't remember.
Nope.
Gone.
No idea how we got there.
Off on a tangent.
Random stuff.
Random.
I know there was probably a point I was making and it just completely derailed myself.
Yep.
Which is normal.
That is pretty normal. Oh well, we can pick it up next time.
Yeah. I think that's enough. That's an hour and 45 minutes. You got anything you want to say to anyone?
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
No, I'm not a sheep.
Bye.
Meh.
Bye. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye now.
So, thank you all for watching. We'll see if we can get some clips out of this and whatever. But, subscribe, like, comment.
All that stuff.
I'm just going to state this for everyone. I am not an expert in anything. I'm just a jackass talking into a microphone. And I'm perfectly willing to acknowledge that everything that I stated tonight is wrong. And I'm sure that somebody will point that out. But this is just a conversation. This is not an educational piece.
No.
If you haven't seen any of these movies or media, I do recommend going and at least watching them or brushing up on them.
With Doctor Who, if you're starting with Doctor Who, you have to watch the Weeping Angels episode.
Called
Blink. If that doesn't catch you, nothing will.
Meh.
Either that or Are You My Mummy?
Yeah, that's like the first Doctor.
No.
It's like one of the first episodes.
Yeah, of the modern world.
Yeah, the modern 2009 one.
Yeah.
I mean, that was based off of an SCP as far as I know. So, there is that. The Weeping Angels, not the Are You My Mummy
Yes.
thing. So, there is that. But, yeah. I mean, it's nice to know where you're coming from, to know where you've been. And then maybe you haven't heard of it. I mean, I'd expect everybody to have heard, or at least that's going to be listening to my channel, to have at least know something about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it might be different in the later strata of the iceberg. And I say strata not because I'm intelligent, but because of Chrysalis. I'm used to calling it strata now.
Uh-huh.
Because they use it in that book all the time. So we'll start getting into the more obscure, especially I think anime. I mean, anime is now making a kind of a surgence to start off with.
Yes.
But there's a lot of old school anime that is heavy sci-fi. Heavy, stupidly dark sci-fi.
That sounds good.
I mean, Kira, to me, is possibly one of the first anime that I ever watched. And and that is stupidly heavy sci-fi and dark undertones.
Oh wow!
So
you entered the genre with a bang, or the medium with a bang.
I mean, there are stupid stuff like we as kids used to have a TV series called Simba and Heidi, which are actually both anime. But we watched the redubbed version in Afrikaans and in English.
Okay.
So it wasn't quite an anime, it was kids' anime.
Yeah.
So it's not what we would traditionally call an anime.
Yeah.
But Simba is actually Japanese. And so is Heidi, the one that we had when we were a kid.
Yeah. Oh my word.
I think that one was. It was either that or German. Because there was a very specific style to it.
Yeah. Oh my word.
So, I mean, barring that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like proper teenager /
young adult.
Yeah, young adults.
Yeah.
Kira was definitely up there with one of the first ones I watched.
Oh my word. Cool.
Although I would have imagined Matrix to be higher. I don't know where it's on this list. It's in the second tier.
Yeah, that should have been
But if Star Wars or WALL-E and War of the Worlds are in the top tier, I'd say Matrix should be in the top tier. Although I suppose it's only the 3 movies and the couple games.
Yeah, but it was huge. It was massive.
25 years ago.
Fair enough. But then WALL-E's quite old.
Yeah, but that's Disney. So
War of the Worlds. A lot of people don't know War of the Worlds.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been remade. I think they're actually doing a TV series. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, Transformers, people would only know the modern movies. They wouldn't necessarily know the original content.
No.
A lot of these top ones, they span decades, multiple different mediums as well. So, I mean, Matrix was just the 3 movies and a game. 2 games. So,
yeah,
I would say it's a bit more obscure. I think the top tier, you could see it as like, your average person might see, but the second tier would be your average sci-fi fan would have seen.
Yes. Fair enough.
But anyways, enough talking about stuff.
Stuff.
Yes. I've had enough stuff. hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have an awesome one. Remember, blah, 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 YouTube stuff, blah, 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 blah. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Cheers.